Theos went to the giant lake in the eastern part of the forest to speak with Rio Lobo. Rio Lobo could see Theos' resemblance to Zion, though Theos had not introduced himself as his son. "Theos, Prince of the Desert, welcome," Rio Lobo boomed. "Tell me, are the rumors true? Has your father truly passed?" "Yes, Lord Rio Lobo. His passing is what brings me here. I want you to teach me the ways of the water dwellers. More specifically, the rain magic you use to aid my people." Rio Lobo stopped for a moment and gave Theos a stern look, carefully pondering his position. "You dare come to me empty-handed? Even the mighty Zion came to me with an offer. Yet you come here making demands of the Lord of the Rivers. Rivers my father built." Theos thought to himself, but he knew better than to say it out loud. He was in Rio Lobo's domain after all, and pressing him like that could cost he and Sam their lives. "You would have the Desert King in your debt," Theos blurted out, not sure how to answer. "King of the Desert?" Rio Lobo scoffed. "You think I have not noticed the lack of your father's sword? What does it mean to be king of the desert if you do not command that power? What good is it to me, the little powerless lord of a desert wasteland? As it stands, it would appear you have nothing of value to me." Sam thought Rio Lobo wanted nothing to do with the fox pup, but Theos read the old otter and knew this was not a hint to leave, but a test. "I know where my father's sword is, hidden away in the desert, and I am the only one who knows where it is. As long as I am here, you know it is not going to be raised against you." The river wolves to either side of him began to growl as Rio Lobo's expression changed, and Theos continued, "And I pledge my personal loyalty to you." Sam shot Theos a questioning look. "I will answer your call to battle no matter the foe." Rio Lobo mulled this over for a moment as he looked at Theos and found a rare moment of compassion for the young boy. He admired the courage it must have taken for him to confront a king, and thought him no more than a harmless boy. He thought too of what Zion had done for him, and Theos grinned as he read it in Rio Lobo's eyes, and the king gave a hearty chuckle. "Very well, pup. King or not, you will swear as long as you are under my protection and tutelage you will keep your secret. And should I or my descendant ever call upon you, you will answer the call without question." "I swear it." Theos nodded in agreement. "Come here, boy," Rio Lobo commanded as he extended his hand. Theos did as he was told and extended his own. Rio Lobo grabbed his forearm and shook it. Then he pulled him in, slamming him into his chest as he brought his other arm around and hit him so hard on the back it almost took his breath away. "Welcome to the clan of the River Wolf. Now there is the matter of teaching you rain magic. But before I do that, I want you to understand the ways of the people of the sea, where our magic comes from, and why the river wolves are here." He paused and turned to one of his guards, a young gull. "Fetch Seda and Circe. I want them to accompany Theos to the eastern coast. After all, the boys should see it as well." The gray gull shuffled away and quickly returned with 2 small otter pups. Theos shifted his gaze from one pup to the other, reading them before he could be introduced. Seda was the eldest of the 2 and only a few years older than Theos. He was strong and proud, if not a bit brash, as most men of his clan were. Circe was a few years younger than Theos. He was a runt that preferred thinking over fighting. "Nice to meet you," Circe said as he extended his hand to Theos to give him the greeting Rio Lobo had given him. Theos obliged, and Seda came to him next. He wasted no time grabbing Theos' arm. He pulled him in and slammed him into his chest, just the way his father had done before him, almost taking Theos' breath again. "Boys, give us and what was your name, Raven?" Rio Lobo asked. "Sam of the Westwood," Sam replied as Theos saw a flicker of annoyance in his eye at being called a raven, but Sam dared not correct him as Rio Lobo continued. "Givus and Sam will be taking you to the Sea of Silence. You have been told the tales, but it is time you see it for yourselves." Theos watched now as the 2 otters ran ahead of him. He and Sam kept a modest pace in their human forms, with Givus flying high overhead. "You really should try to get to know people without the use of your eyes, you know," Sam began. "And why is that?" Theos asked. Sam thought about it But other than it being really unnerving, he didn't have a real answer, so he changed the subject. Do you know why the Eastern Sea is called the Sea of Silence? No. Father said that Rio Lobo made it rain because he had made a connection between the sea in the east and the west, but never explained why. The sea in the east is dead. Not one clan calls that sea home. Sam explained. Why? Theos asked. The dragons. Seda replied. He and Circe had been eavesdropping as they walked, and had changed to their human forms to walk with Theos and Sam. There's a story that our father told us about a war between the great clans of Scale and the water dwellers of the east. There were singing giants here that could control the weather and the waves. Circe began to elaborate. The dragons swear that is their magic, but it was the water dwellers of the east who taught them. Seda said matter-of-factly, the point is that they both could do it, and the dragons not only killed the giants that lived in the sea, they purged the entire Eastern Ocean. Circe continued. Theos was taken aback. He knew what a dragon's sin was and why it was called that. But clearing an entire ocean. What kind of beast has that kind of power? They say before the wars between the phoenix and dragons thousands of years ago it was called the Sea of Songs. But now it's the Sea of Silence. Seda interrupted again, puffing his chest out and jumping in front of his little brother in an attempt to garner attention. Cut it out, Circe said as he turned away and kept walking. Or what? Seda said with a mischievous grin. Circe knew where this was going, and he was not very thrilled about it, but Theos could see the longing for a tussle in Seda's eyes, and a playful grin found its way to his face as he changed to a fox to take Circe's place. Seda wasn't sure at first, but he changed to an otter, and the two boys began to play fight. Master Seda, give us cord from up above, but the two boys continued their scuffle. Let them be boys, Sam said with a grin from the ground that quickly faded when he realized the two were getting close to the edge of a high cliff. The boys ran to the top of a small hill and rolled down the other side, stopping a few feet from the cliff's edge. Theos got to his feet as the two separated and awaited Seda's next attack, when out of the corner of his eye Theos caught a man watching them further down the coast. While he was distracted by the man, Seda made his move. He caught Theos off guard, and after hitting his ankle on a rock, Theos fell backwards over the cliff's edge. Sam changed to a crow and followed Theos over the edge. He tucked his wings to try and reach the flailing fox pup, but Sam could not grab him. He turned back toward the sky just before he hit the water, as Theos hit the water with a sickening thud. He was knocked unconscious by the fall, and to Sam's horror he began to sink. For a second Theos felt as if he had been slammed into the earth. He would never have imagined hitting water could hurt like this. Then cold. He opened his eyes and coughed hard, letting out what air he had left in his lungs, and the water came rushing in as he inhaled. He began to flail as the light above him faded, and the cold changed to warmth. Then he closed his eyes again, and it felt as if his skin was on fire. He opened his eyes once more and thought he was surrounded by glowing red. Red what? It hurt. Everything hurt. Then he heard a woman's voice whisper, "Not yet, little fox." A cooling sensation came over him, a calm like he had never felt. Then he could feel someone tugging on his arm. He opened his eyes and began to vomit as Gervas dragged him through the water to the shore. Sam ran out into the water to meet them as Gervas trudged through the waves with the fox pup over his shoulder. Theos. Sam helped lower him down on the sand, and Seda and Circe watched on. "I am sorry. I didn't mean to," Seda said in a panic. "It's okay," Theos said between ragged breaths. "It wasn't your fault I tripped on a rock." Theos vomited seawater again before he coughed. "Sam, I really should learn to swim before going into the water." Sam laughed nervously, thinking of how he had just narrowly avoided the wolf's jaws. Theos sat up and looked around. They were on a small sandbar at the bottom of a jagged, barren cliffside. The sea sprawled out before them, and there was not a beach in sight. Only steep cliffs that looked as though they had been cleaved and battle-scarred. The scars had been worn smooth with time, but the cliffs that lined the coast were still jagged in appearance. Theos took in the scent of salt. He strained his ears to listen, but it was as Circe had said, not one cry of a gull. Splash of a fish. Nothing. Even the water stood still. "Look out there, boys," Gervas said as he pointed out to the horizon. Theos squinted and saw large black clouds almost out of sight. He could hear thunder rumbling in the distance. "Our natural weather comes from the east, where all weather magic is said to come from. Even though the clans of this sea are dead, their legacy lives on in those clouds." Theos stared out at the sea. It was unsettling how a place so vast could be so empty. "That is why the task was given to your father by the Lord of the Western Ocean, to reclaim the Sea of the East in his name. So that is why they came east, and why Rio Lobo wanted father to connect the rivers of the land." Theos thought to himself as he turned his attention for a moment back to the cliffs above. Who was that man and the woman in the water? For a while Theos forgot the life he had left behind in the desert, but he never forgot why he had come to the riverlands in the east. Seda and Circes began to take the place of the brothers he had lost, and Rio Lobo made sure he learned the ways of the river wolves. Theos became such a proficient swimmer and user of water magic that the river wolves began to see him as one of their own. Sam taught Theos the shadow art as well, the way Ozai Ori taught him years before. Just like his mother, Theos had acquired the knack for it, even besting Sam a time or two. Theos had to take extra care when practicing the shadow art, as tapping into the power rattled the cage of the monster within him. 7 years passed as such, and Theos became a fine young man. Theos and Sam were resting beneath a large conifer next to a lazy river to hide from the heat of the day. Theos had stalked a fish to the water and killed it before it was able to change form and escape into the crystal stream, and now the two were eating their fill when they noticed a large brown owl flying overhead. The owl circled for a moment, and Sam took his human form, still chewing the flesh he had stripped from the fish's thigh with his beak. As he stepped out of the shade and into the light, the owl seemed to have taken notice and landed as another man came strolling over the hill in a cloud of fireflies. "Nilus," Theos said with surprise. "Theos." Derek came sprinting from behind Nilus. Theos' eyes lit up at the sight of his brother, and he opened his arms wide to embrace him. "What are you doing here?" Theos said as he began to read Derek. He had grown at least a foot since Theos had seen him last, and he was now sporting their mother's sword. "Oxel sent me here to represent our clan with Uncle Nilus in negotiation with the southern kingdoms." Theos' eyes shifted from his brother to Nilus, then back again. "Grandfather has passed," Theos said, causing Derek's happy expression to vanish as he continued. "And Oxel has sent you to be killed. Can you not see that? You are wrong, brother. Oxel cares for my safety. That is why we are here for you and the river wolves. He sent you here for me because he wants to be rid of us both." Theos replied angrily at the thought of his scheming uncle. "He knew I would not let you go alone." "No." Derek growled back, furious at his brother's accusation. "Where have you been for the last 7 years, brother?" Theos shifted his gaze away from the sorrow in his brother's eyes. "While you were out playing in the rivers and streams of the East, grandfather took care of me. He taught me how to deal in coin. Nilus taught me how to tend the vine. And Oxel has taught me how to fight and stalk like a true hunter. And where have you been?" Theos began, but the words escaped him. "I am the heir of the House of Wine now, and I have an obligation to do this as such. So can I count on you? Are you still my brother, no matter where I am, or how long I am gone? No matter who I become, I will always be your brother, and I will always have your back." Theos replied, "And I thought my little brother was too serious." Seda jeered as he came up to the water's edge, followed by several otters that all changed form as they came ashore. Theos greeted him with the traditional grabbing of the forearm, followed by a hard slap on the back. "How has he been, Sam?" Nilus asked as he watched the 3 boys chattering among themselves. "He has done well learning the ways of the otters," Sam replied. "Besides being unable to stay underwater for long, you cannot tell the boy apart from them. It is almost scary to watch him stalk fish out of water, and he has quite the knack for rain magic. Sorry to hear about your father, but what business do you have in the southern swamp? The clans of Scales have been terrorizing travelers and merchants alike," Nilus replied. It is causing problems for us. The rivers are the safest form of travel since Haven became a boneyard, and moving wine west and north is a large source of our income. Us as well, Gervas said as he landed, changed, and plucked a stray feather from his elbow. There have been less fish making the journey east. Hunting is getting slim. The water dwellers were already reluctant to return to the Sea of Silence, but now with the southern swamp being so dangerous, well, they have all but stopped coming. So Oxel intends for you to make a deal with the scales of the swamp, or get the panthers to do his dirty work? Sam asked, with contempt in his voice. He expects Derek and I to succeed. How we succeed is entirely up to us. It was Derek's idea to try and talk with them. But if he cannot convince the panthers to help us or the alligator clan to stop stealing from us and compensate us for our losses, well, that is what the river wolves are for. Neelis replied. And what of the lessers that tend the vines? And you, Neelis? Surely Oxel was not their choice to handle the House of Wine's affairs until the boy comes of age? Sam asked. You know as well as I do, Sam, that the lessers that served my father had no choice in the matter. And as for me, I will entertain my brother for a time. After all, Derek is almost of age, and I have managed to keep him safe this long. Sophia knows if I let something happen to Derek, Kirill would never forgive me. And it was my father's desire that Derek become his heir, so it is only a matter of time. I see. So you have managed to position yourself to reap the rewards of seeing the boy through, Sam said as he raised his eyebrow at Neelis. What do you mean? Neelis replied, genuinely confused by Sam's apparent implication. I am to believe you had nothing to do with Kira's interest in Derek? Sam asked flatly. No. Those two are inseparable. She loves his poetry and his soft disposition. My interest is strictly to carry out my father's wishes and protect my daughter's happiness. Sam did not believe him. He was glad he did not have a family or fortune to concern himself with. It must be awful, he thought, to have to constantly worry about the politics of it all. The group continued down the river through the southern forest and into the swampland. Theos and Derek were both stunned by the change in flora. The tall, minty conifers of the forest had changed to short, broad-leaved trees with shallow roots that spread across the ground from their trunks like spiderwebs. Theos and Derek had taken to their fox forms and were playing among the branches as Seda shot water at them from the stream below. Neelis walked the river's edge, constantly scanning the underbrush as Sam, Gervas, and the large brown owl flew overhead.